But I mostly want to speak about the Clark County Public Lands Bill. And I think the problem starts right at the beginning there. This bill has been miscast as a public lands bill. This bill is a growth bill. It is a sprawl bill. And it essentially gives an answer to a question that was never asked. The question is, how should we grow? What does the future of Southern Nevada and Las Vegas look like? The answer given by the bill is we're going to sprawl outward from Las Vegas into all the valleys surrounding the city and sell off a bunch of public lands to rich real estate developers. That's the answer given to the question that was never asked. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, what does the future of our community look like? Does it look like the same patterns that have led to, for instance, we don't meet EPA air quality standards in this valley. In fact, the American Lung Association said we have the 13th worst air in the country. They just released a report a few months ago. Well, why is that? Partially because of sprawl, because people are driving many, many, many miles to get where they need to go, because our default mode of development has been to sprawl outward. And so the question is, do we want to double down on that kind of development, or do we want a new path forward? I think what was not explicitly stated in the presentation, but what is the implication is they're getting one-to-one credit for these ACECs designated. That means that is a mitigation bank that Fish and Wildlife Service has for development. And this mitigation bank, every new development is deducted from that. That's 300,000 acres. The current urban footprint of Las Vegas is 250,000 acres. So while the increment of public lands to be sold by this bill is only 32,000 acres, it belies a long-term plan of 300,000 acres of development, doubling the size of Las Vegas. And I ask you, for folks who live here in the South, do you want to live in a city that's twice the size of the city we live in right now in terms of its geographic spread? I think many people would really not appreciate that. And we did an analysis that shows there is 100,000 acres of undeveloped land within the SNPLMA boundary. Right now, 100,000 acres. You drive through Southwest and you know what I'm talking about. And it's not just the Southwest, it's all over. We have undeveloped parcels everywhere. Why? There are real estate speculators holding on to those parcels so that they can make more money at some time. There's resistance to infill development also because of local zoning. There's a variety of issues that go into why infill development is not happening, but the bottom line is to ignore that issue and just sprawl outward because the policy mechanisms aren't in place right now to promote infill is really short-sighted. The federal legislation may not be able to deal with infill. That may be more on the county government and even on the state legislature to promote infill development. But the bottom line is that this bill does not promote infill, and really, as I said, there's 100,000 acres we could still develop right here in the valley without all the problems that come from sprawl. I'll try to wrap up quickly here. You know, ultimately, sprawl development perpetuates the patterns that have gotten us to the problems we are at. It's a giveaway for rich developers to build houses for affluent people miles and miles away from the urban core, while investment in our communities, and particularly frontline and low-income communities here in Las Vegas who need investment, you know, is not going to happen because the county is going to be focused on building new services and et cetera for these far-flung outlying communities. So sprawl is really perpetuating historical inequities in development. And I think there's an opportunity here for Clark County to have a new path forward, a new way to develop, to become a city of the future. This is the fastest warming city in the country. And all those new vehicle miles traveled mean more carbon emissions. So this bill is also going to exacerbate climate change. I think at some point, you know, this is an ongoing dialogue. We heard there may be a discussion draft sometime soon. Certainly you all will continue to hear from my organization and others about this. And at some point we will be asking for action from you all for how the legislature can weigh in supporting infill development, supporting sustainable development, supporting development that improves our quality of life, our air quality, and our climate, not exacerbating the problems we currently have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly.